Chapter 4. Lottie. If Sara had been a different kind of child, the life she led at Miss Minchin's Select Seminary for young ladies would no doubt have been a very tiresome one. But she was not in the least a fretful or disagreeable child, and if circumstances had not been able to make her constantly happy, they would never have made her constantly unhappy. She was always trying to imagine things, pretending she was in a story or that the world was a fairy tale. One of her most constant amusements was making up stories for the smallest children, who adored her and followed her in crowds about the house and garden. "Look at the Princess Sara," they would cry. "What shall we play today, Princess Sara?" Sara, who had been made to understand that a princess must be polite, would always stop and talk with them and invent wonderful games. She liked them and was sorry for them because they were so small and helpless. She had no trouble in managing them because they liked her so much, and she liked them. She never seemed to fail to interest them, and there was a certain little girl among them who was more of a favorite with her than the rest. This child was Lottie Legge, who was only just 4. She was a rich little thing who had been sent to Miss Minchin's school because her father had married again, and her stepmother did not want her in the house. Lottie was a tiny, pale, delicate creature with a large fretful mouth and big, troubled eyes. She had not been long at the school before it was evident that she was always going to be a crying child. She cried in the morning when she was washed and dressed, she cried in the schoolroom, she cried at her lessons, she cried when she went to bed. She was wailing one morning in the nursery, where Sara found her, perched upon a footstool, in the act of refusing to allow her nurse to comb her hair. "What is the matter?" she asked. "Why do you cry so much?" "I'm crying because I don't like Miss Minchin," sobbed Lottie. "Then I wouldn't cry," Sara said. "Yes, you would," answered Lottie. "You'd cry just as I do if you were treated as I am." This was the beginning of a friendship between Lottie and Sara. From that day, Lottie clung to Sara like a limpet. The older girl became her constant companion, her comforter, and her protector. When Lottie threw tantrums, which she often did, Sara would take her aside and calm her down, telling her funny little stories or gently scolding her until the tears stopped. "Sara always knows what to do," the other children whispered. "She makes Lottie stop crying when no one else can." Sara discovered that Lottie's constant crying was not just because she was spoiled. The little girl was deeply lonely and missed her mother, who had died when she was a baby. No one had ever truly comforted her or listened to her feelings. One day, after Lottie had thrown herself on the floor in a fit of tears, Sara picked her up gently and sat her on her knee. "Lottie," Sara said softly, "don't cry. I'll tell you a secret. Do you know why I don't cry when I feel sad?" Lottie sniffed and shook her head. "Because I pretend," Sara explained. "I pretend that I'm a princess. A princess is brave and strong, even when she feels sad or lonely. You can be a princess too, Lottie. Would you like that?" Lottie stared at Sara with wide, tear-filled eyes. "But I'm not a princess," she said. "I'm just Lottie." "You can pretend," Sara said with a smile. "Close your eyes and imagine that you are in a beautiful palace, with golden walls and sparkling chandeliers. Imagine that you have a crown on your head, and everyone loves you and takes care of you." Lottie hesitated, then closed her eyes and tried to picture what Sara described. For the first time, she stopped crying. "Do you think my mama would like it if I were a princess?" Lottie asked in a small voice. "I'm sure she would," Sara said. From that day on, Lottie's tantrums became less frequent. Whenever she felt upset, Sara would remind her to pretend she was a princess, and it seemed to give her a sense of comfort and strength. The other girls at the school were amazed at how Sara managed to calm Lottie, when no one else could. Even Miss Minchin noticed the change. Although she didn't approve of Sara's imaginative stories, she couldn't deny that they had a positive effect on Lottie. As Sara and Lottie grew closer, Sara felt a sense of responsibility for the little girl. She saw how much Lottie needed someone to love and protect her, and she was glad to be that person. In return, Lottie adored Sara and followed her everywhere, holding her hand and looking up to her with wide, trusting eyes. To the other children, Sara's kindness and patience made her seem even more like a real princess. She was someone they admired, even if they didn't always understand her. Little by little, Lottie began to smile more often and cry less. She still missed her mother, but with Sara's help, she found a way to be brave and face the world. And Sara, as always, found joy in helping others. Her friendship with Lottie became another way for her to bring a little light and happiness into the lives of those around her. If you enjoyed this chapter, don't forget to like the video and subscribe to the channel so you can follow Sara's journey as we continue reading this beautiful story together.